So let's compare the type systems of TypeScript and GraphQL. So both are great technologies and actually an improvement of the previous technologies, because TypeScript is just a better way of JavaScript, the same way as GraphQL is a better way to do REST APIs. And in this video, I'll be comparing the two type systems. So we're going to be looking at TypeScript type systems, at GraphQL type system, and then look at some of the differences between the two type systems. So first, let's look at a GraphQL API. If you look at this GraphQL API, you can see you can query customers. So you can get customer information, like a specific customer by its ID. And this is actually a GraphQL API created with StepZen based on a MySQL database. But that's not the topic of today. If we look at the GraphQL schema for this GraphQL API, it will look a bit like this. So you will have type definitions like the customer, which we just saw, and then you have query definitions down here that actually gets the data out of our database. What we're going to be comparing is the type customer. So you would have a type customer in GraphQL, and then you also want this type in TypeScript, of course. So let me actually put two files side by side. So we would have our customer type in GraphQL on the left side, and then our customer type in TypeScript on the other hand. Comment this out. If we want to create a customer type, we actually need to write type customer is, open it with the curly brackets, and then you can start typing. So you can actually say here we have email, which is a string. And then we would have ID, which is a number but not an integer, because TypeScript doesn't know about integers. They have numbers and floats. Or actually everything is a number. So that's the easiest way to compare. Everything in TypeScript, number-wise, is called a number. And then we would have name, which is basically a string. So these are the three basic types you have for this schema. As you can see, we have email, ID, and name. And then we have address list and order list, and those are actually linked to other types. So if we would have address list, it's a list of address. So what I could do, I could take the address, bring it here, actually close this Explorer, and we can also change this one into a TypeScript type. So we can say city, it's a string. We can say country region is also a string. Customer list, well, it refers back to customer. ID, which will be a number. This is a string as well. These are all strings, so let me just do it all by one and change the uppercase s in a lowercase s. And then, of course, not forget to type it like this. And now we can actually link these types. We can say address list over here is something is in address array. So this is another difference in TypeScript. In GraphQL, you will define a relation with address like this. You actually put the type within the straight brackets. In TypeScript, you either type it like this, or, and this is another way to do it, you can type it down like this. So you can say array, then you open it with the arrows, is of type address. So these are two ways you can define arrays in TypeScript. It's similar to GraphQL, but it's a little bit different. And of course, we needed to do the same thing up here. Now, this is how you create relational fields. And that's something else that's important to know. So everything we see in TypeScript here is required. Well, actually what you want in GraphQL, you want things to be optional. Because if we look at email ID and string, these are all required. So that's good. They translate one-to-one to TypeScript. But if we go to address, you can see city, country, region. They're not required. So in TypeScript, we actually need to use this question mark. Meaning that in GraphQL, everything is optional by default unless you define it's required, like we've done here with the exclamation mark. Instead, we're going to be using, in TypeScript world, everything is required by default. So we don't use anything for the types that are actually required already, but for the types that weren't required in GraphQL, like these ones, we're going to be adding the question mark. So we have country region, customer list itself is also optional. ID is required, as we see here, so it's required here. And then postal code, state, province, and street, they're all optional. So that's how that would work. And then we also have the something we call interfaces. So what we could do here in GraphQL is create an interface Let's call this customer interface, like this. And maybe what we want to do here is put all these fields there. And then we can say type customer implements customer interface. And then of course clean it up a bit, like this. So this is how you would use interfaces in GraphQL. In the same way, we can also use interfaces in the TypeScript world. We first clean up this TypeScript file. So let's clean up. We can also do here interface. We can say customer interface. And then again, we can copy these fields that we use most of the times. And then we could say type customer implements customer interface, like this. So no, this actually won't work, because in TypeScript it works a little bit different. To actually have TypeScript interfaces, you need to type down things a little bit different. So the same way we would use this interface to create a new type in GraphQL, or actually to create something based on this type, it's a little bit different to how we would do it in TypeScript. So in TypeScript, what we would do, we use it a little bit different. So let me type it down for you, how we do it instead. So we have the interface, and the interface actually isn't a way to implement something. It's a type on its own. So this is not an extension, it's a type on its own. Different as in GraphQL, where interfaces are made to be extended. So what we could do though is get rid of this, and then we could say type customer is this thing, and then it is also the customer interface. So this is how you would actually reuse the same customer interface, both in TypeScript and GraphQL. Then another way, actually, if you want to extend types in GraphQL, you would do it a little bit different. You could say we have type customer, and then we can say we have interface, we have type customer interface, a type customer like this. So this has all the basic fields, and then we can say extend type customer to also have these relational fields. So this will be the similar representation of an interface in both TypeScript and GraphQL, where we use extend to extend types in GraphQL. In TypeScript, we can use types to extend it like this, but we can also extend types like this. This would also be okay in TypeScript world. So this is another difference. It's small, but the difference is there. And then, of course, to give you one final difference between the two type systems, it is that the type definitions itself, so the values of the types, they all use lowercasing in TypeScript, while they use an uppercase in GraphQL. It was the simplest example, but it was the one I kept for the end. So thanks for listening to this video. If you want to keep updated, make sure to subscribe to the StepZen YouTube channel. And also like this video if you like this content, of course. And down here you can also find another link to a video that shows you how to use GraphQL and TypeScript together in one single project. So thanks for watching, and I hope you liked this video, and make sure to subscribe to the StepZen YouTube channel.